Ciao guys, welcome to another episode of the Personal PR Show. And today we are here with our resident guest, Portia the producer. Okay, Nino was here as well, now he's leaving. Okay, so Portia, where's Mr. Fletcher?
Mr. Fletcher is upstairs in his room. He'll be going out for pee o'clock in a little bit because he goes for about 7 to 9 walks a day. He's a dog from a farm, and I like to keep him on an active schedule. So normally when mama gets up in the morning, he's up too because it's time for breakfast, time for pee o'clock. Of course, he gets all the pets and loves, and then he likes to play because he's a boy. So the first thing that I try to do is obviously put his leash on so we can go outside. Well, he wants to run around in his room. He wants, how they get like the zoomies. So that's what he normally does in the morning. He just runs around, and I'm like, okay, Mr. Fletcher, come on. Mama Bear's got to get, the day started. But he's a good little guy. So funny story about him really fast. So how I actually got him was actually in, I believe, August of 2017. This is shortly after my TV career went downhill. And I was looking for just a furry companion, to keep me company. And so I posted on one of the Facebook groups when I was out of town. And I said, hey, I'm looking for a dog that's no more than 2 years old, but no less than maybe 8 months old. Obviously house trained, that whole thing. And he was one of the first ones that somebody posted on the group. So I drove an hour and some change away from my house to a farm to go and see him. And Jessica, I'm not making the story up. When I pulled up to the farm, I parked my car. I get out of my SUV, same SUV that I still have today, mind you. And he comes up to me. He sits down on the ground and does this. He hands me his paw to shake it. I'm not making this up. And that's when I knew he was mine. So we kind of did a test run to see how he would do with me for a week. And then he never left. And he's relocated from Oklahoma up here to Ohio with me. And he'll be 6 in November. So other funny story. My birthday's November 30th. His birthday's November 20th. So we're like 2 peas in a pod, literally.
Exactly. Oh my God. And guys, we have to mention as well that Mr. Fletcher is very spoiled because he's got his own room, his own bed, and his own TV.
Yep. He's spoiled, rotten. And he gets to wear bow ties sometimes on Fridays, Fletcher Fridays. So he gets to wear a bow tie because he's a little gentleman.
So good. And I love how you told us this story through the power of storytelling. I mean, you're all about storytelling. So you always, like, whatever the topic, you always have at least one story. And the stories are super good, right? Yes. And today we're here to talk about storytelling, but applied to a different topic, which is mental health, right, Portia?
Oh, 100%. And, I have to say, Jessica, that when I think about, number one, mental health and storytelling, they're both my passions, number one. Number two, the current situation that I'm in at the moment is very applicable to storytelling for mental wellness. So for our listeners who are tuning in, I buried my mom 9 months ago. My mom passed away 9 months ago, last year in July. And about 2 weeks ago, it's been a week. A week ago, my last living parent made their transition as well. And, a lot of people ask me, tell me, Portia, you're so strong. Portia, you're so strong. But I have to preface that, sometimes when you're so strong, that's all you've ever known. It's subconsciously ingrained, right? Jessica, we were talking about a little bit before we went live that a lot of us, especially women, we have what I call the strong woman cape algorithm that's deeply ingrained in us that we're supposed to push and push and push. But it took me this week, Jessica, to have an honest heart-to-heart conversation with myself, right? Everybody's asking me, Portia, how you doing? Portia, how's things going? And I kept telling everybody, I'm okay, I'm fine, I'm working through it. But realistically, I wasn't. I had to admit to myself that I was not okay. And that took a lot for me to say that after all this time. Even when my mom passed away, Jessica, I was numb for probably at least 2 or 3 months after my mom passed away. I couldn't get out of bed. I mean, just every day and trigger warning for people, every single day I wanted to die. Every single day after my mom passed away, because I didn't know what to do. You feel like you're detached from your main, I guess you can say, way of coming into this world, right? It's almost like a second umbilical cord is cut, no pun intended, in a sense, because, you know, me and my mom were like this. My mom and I were like two peas in a pod, and she was definitely my rock through a lot. And even though me and my father, we may have had an estranged relationship throughout my life, and I actually brought this up, I think, when we first went live in December, the butterfly in December story that I talked about. The butterfly in December was the visit from my father, because my father, his stage name was Butterfly, because he toured around Greater Cleveland and DJ'd and he sung. My father is a harmonica player and he played the guitar, both self-taught, you know. But the moral of the story is the fact that, you know, when I'm speaking about what I'm currently going through, you know, grief is a unique journey for each and every one of us. It's a process, but it's possible. You know, it's not permanent. I mean, grief is not permanent. As long as we're open to, number one, being honest with ourselves. Number two, building that self-awareness muscle. And that's why I'm grateful for the last couple years through my mental health journey, that I've really built on my self-awareness to recognize, hey, Portia, we're not okay. We're really not okay. And it really took my father's transition to really paint that picture for me in its entirety. You know, so for people who are tuning in, I've said several different stories for a reason, because storytelling for your mental wellness, I'm going to go back to my VIP acronym. Okay.
Yes.
Number one. Okay. So VIP for storytelling for mental health. V as in value. Each and every one of us, your story has value. Always remember that. I always say this. The worst part of you is what? The best part of you, all the time. What you might think is, oh, I don't want to talk about the trials and tribulations that I've been through. No. Somebody needs to hear that. Just like I'm showing up today. Only a week after my father made his transition, I'm showing up today still to speak to all of you today that it's possible, right? Again, it goes back to building your self-awareness muscle and being honest with yourself that you're not okay. Okay, so remember that your story has value. Remember the impact, right? Each of our stories, each of our journeys is not for us. Your story is to stop other people's goals, dreams, and aspirations from making the cemetery richer. So if you're under this veil of impression that your story doesn't matter, that it's not going to reach people, somebody needs the lyrics of your life journey to help them dance again. Look at it from that perspective.
Yeah.
Okay. Letter P, passion, power. Okay. Each and every, and purpose, right? Passion, power, purpose. Your story has a purpose. We weren't just put here to just exist. We weren't put here to just wake up, go to a 9 to 5 every day, come back home, eat, sleep, repeat. No, each of us has a purpose. So remember, your story has a purpose. It serves more than one, not just for the people who you haven't even met yet or touched. It also serves a purpose for you to really come into your true calling, into your true self, if you're open to it. And even for me, Jessica, when I look back at my mom's journey, right, I would have took care of my mom forever, right? I would have been her caregiver until death did us part. If I went first, I would have still been her caregiver, right? But, you know, God works in mysterious ways, you know, because through my mom's journey, through my mom's transition and both my father's, I'm not only just experiencing the physical loss of both of them, right? Let's go to identity real fast, right? So after my mom made her transition, I'm like, oh, I'm no longer a daughter. I'm no longer a caregiver, right? Same thing with my TV career. So you see, it's compounded. When I was TV producer, after that career suddenly went, you know, after suddenly did that, I'm like, who am I? And so even now I'm on a new self-discovery journey of who is Portia now that both of her parents have made a transition in a short period of time. And so what I really want to leave with our listeners today is that even though we may feel as though we don't have a sense of identity when some of these roles that we've occupied for a short period, whether it's for a short period of time or for a length of time, right? There's a beauty in that. And I feel like that's where grief really comes in as that buffer to really put us at a stop, right? Let's stop sending this energy into these roles that have obviously the door has closed, and redirect that back to us to really find out who we are, what we're really passionate about, and really make an impact, make a difference. We can do hard things. If I can stand up here and talk to all of you, and my father just passed away a week ago, on one of the best days of my life, I have to say this, on one of the best days of my life, where I did a presentation on this same thing, the power of storytelling for mental wellness. I did it with the Global Youth Mental Health Awareness. And I got to speak to their audience in Australia, I think Africa, I think there's people all over the world on this presentation. And shortly after that presentation, a few hours later, I would get the phone call that my father passed away. So it's the duality of life, right? But I want to really say this to everybody, that duality exists no matter what. We're going to have the good and the bad exist at the same time, especially when we're going through grief, right? Where there's things going well in our life, like what I shared with you, Jessica, about going on location and recording this podcast. But also there's things not going right, where I'm preparing to let another parent go again. And so when we're in that space, this is where gratitude is key. Focusing on the good times, focusing on the memories that you've cultivated with these individuals, with these events, with these jobs, because that to me is your life jacket to work through some of life's greatest challenges. I'm Portia the Producer, y'all.
Oh my God, Portia, I don't know how to follow up on this, because you always leave me breathless. You always deliver so much content and so good and so relevant for everybody, like for different people that listen to you. They will all feel that they have something to learn from you. It's crazy. Like, your message applies to so many different people. Thank you so much for sharing your vulnerability, because we've talked about your mom a few times, but it had been, although you were still, of course, very touched by her transition, still a few months had already gone by. And now we're having this episode today, just 1 week after your dad made his transition, right? So you really, it was planned anyway that we talk about this topic today. We've been planning this for a few weeks. Who would have known that, 1 week before the episode, this would happen, right? And you're still here and you're sharing so vulnerably. And I love the combination of your vulnerability on one side, but at the same time, your strength as well. It's like this unique pairing that you don't see many people, right? And it corresponds to the duality of life that you mentioned as well, like the good and the bad that can happen on the same day, like last Saturday happened for you, when first of all you delivered this amazing talk to so many people all over the world, Australia, Africa, and so on. And then a few hours later, you got the call about your dad. So I'm speechless every single time that you share with us. It's like, this has so much power. It's incredible how many lives you touch. And we're really, really grateful to have you here on the Personal PR Show as a resident guest, because you really grace us with your vulnerability and power every single time. Oh my God, this is really, really amazing.
Well, thank you, Jessica. I want to add to Jessica, even though, like I mentioned, me and my father had an estranged relationship throughout most of my life, right? When I went into his room after he passed away, because it was sudden. It wasn't, like a slow progression. My father had been sick, but when he passed away, it was very quick. And I took a minute while I was in his room. I touched him. He was still warm, because he had just passed away. But I took a moment to pray for him. I prayed that his soul found peace. I prayed that, that I was grateful that we were able to mend our rocky relationship throughout my whole life. And the other thing I did, I played a song. And just really gave myself time to be present with him, with his spirit. So one of my favorite songs that I was hoping that me and him would dance to at my wedding is Dance with My Father by Luther Vandross. And I played that song, and I'll actually send you the picture it's on my phone screen that really, to me, depicts what that song is about. You know, the father love of, you know, of his daughter, of his children. And, you know, so to me, there's no amount of circumstances in our life that you can't forgive somebody, right? And I love to share this because when I tried to commit suicide 6 years ago, you know, God was like, no, Portia, not today, Portia. I've got a bigger plan for you. So if God could forgive me when I was trying to exit this world, why can't I forgive my father who brought me into this world? Whether he was estranged or not, right? His absence throughout my life turned into my presence when he made his transition out of this life.
Yes.
Let that sink in, everybody, because we're all going to need somebody, right? Somebody's going to be in our corner no matter what. But again, if the higher power, whether it's God, source, the universe, whatever you address it as, if they can forgive us, we can forgive other people too. And forgiveness looks different for everybody. Some people, you want to be buddy, that's fine. But I think there's an importance here that forgiveness is for you. It's not for the other person. And it sets yourself free.
Yeah, totally. Oh my God, this is beautiful. This is beautiful. Wow. But Portia, let's get on a, so to say, on a meta level. It's not a proper meta level, but let's talk about your engagements when it comes to mental health, because we're approaching Mental Health Month, which is coming up in May, right? Exactly.
Yes.
Yeah. And it's not that you only do things in May for mental health. I mean, you are an advocate for mental health every single day of the year, right? So first of all, we need to acknowledge that. But Mental Health Month is coming up, and therefore a lot of conferences and speaking engagements and so on are coming up as well for you, right? So what is on your plan, let's say on your calendar now? What was on your calendar last weekend? Because I think that we need to talk about what the speech that you held last Saturday as well. It was massive. It was worldwide as well. So should we maybe dedicate a few minutes to that?
Yeah, I mean, Jessica, to be very honest with you, I've left my calendar a little open for May, you know, especially with this recent transition of my father. This is why I say grief is such a unique journey, because I think it forces us to stop and really take in life, right? Go moment by moment, because we get so caught in what I call the hamster wheel of go, 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 go all the time. And so for me, whenever grief has hit, it is given me that time to just sit and be present with what my life currently looks like, right? So for me right now, I don't have any major speaking engagements booked so far in May. So people are looking for a speaker for mental health, I am open and available. But I really left it open to just give myself time to be present with my emotions, be present with myself, really take time to discover who I am now that both of my parents have made their transition, and also really do things that I've always wanted to do, but I couldn't, because being a full-time caregiver of my mom, I didn't really have the flexibility to leave the house. Like I could for a couple hours, but not for long trips and things like that, because my mom was on oxygen, you know. So once my mom made her transition, it gave me more openness to travel, to do other things. The other thing that I want to say, and I guess spoiler alert, of course, there's always spoilers from Portia. I am actually working on a new book that is centered around my grief journey from my father's transition. And it's actually named after one of the episodes of Grew with Portia from a while ago. So those of you who listen to Grew with Portia, you might already know which episode I'm talking about. I won't spoil that, but I'll be really focusing in on that, because grief is such a unique journey, and I've really taken, I guess you can say, a special interest in it, especially because I've been through so many bouts of it in a short period of time. I mean, my mom last year in July, my coach, Gail, in February of this year, and then obviously my father, so it's 3 back-to-back individuals who played a key role in my life at some point. Gail was very short, but she made a big impact because she really encouraged me to get back in front of the camera when I was like, oh no, I'm not getting back in front of the camera. After my TV career, I'm like, nope, I'm out. 3 strikes in baseball game. No, I'm done. but each situation, like I said, again, when it comes to grief, it really puts things into perspective for you. I think grief is healthy as long as we have the right tools and self-awareness built up enough to see it from that aspect. I have to say it in that way because our society paints grief with a negative connotation. But for me, grief has been where I've produced some of my best work, where I've been able to really step back from that hamster swing of life going, and really take a moment to enjoy, because life is meant to be enjoyed. And I think grief forces us to start to enjoy it if we're open to it. Now, don't get me wrong. Sometimes I do feel a little resentful, right? I do feel a little envious of some of my friends who have both of their parents, but yet they have an estranged relationship, right? Versus me, I had like the best relationship with my mom, and she's, made a transition. But this is where gratitude comes in. I have to really go to my gratitude journal and start counting what I'm truly grateful for, right? The legacy that my mom left behind, obviously me and my brother, obviously the lessons that my mom instilled in me, the fact that my mom was tough as nails. I mean, literally, Jessica, my mom was tough as nails. Like, my mom was in the military. My mom had a very fruitful career. My mom wanted to be an astronaut. My mom was super brilliant. Like, so the fact that my mom really paved that mirror image of what I wanted to be like, I couldn't ask for better, and my mom spent time with us throughout my whole upbringing. My mom didn't, my mom worked different jobs and things like that. But for the most part, my mom was home with us. So she got to really be present for some of the key moments in my life, majority of them. I mean, my mom obviously came to all my graduations. My mom came to actually my speech at the NAMI walk in 2000, and I think it was 2019, when I did the NAMI walk here in Cleveland, Ohio, to over 300 something people. No, it was 2021, because it was shortly after, obviously with COVID shutting the whole world down and that, so people were a little leery about coming, in person. So yeah, it was 2021 when I spoke, and my mom came. My mom got to see me, speak at somewhat of a big event. And, that really made me see that what I'm doing is so key, because so many of us are too afraid to be vulnerable because it's viewed as a weakness. But for me, I found my greatest strength in being vulnerable.
Yes, absolutely. And we find strength in seeing you being vulnerable as well. So what you're doing is so precious for so many people. Like you said, your story is not just for yourself, it's for a lot of other people, right? Oh my God, I love this. Portia, what is it that we're going to talk about next month, by the way? Because I know that we are approaching the end of our conversation, unfortunately, but what is it? Can we give a spoiler, like Portia, one of Portia's spoilers as to what we are going to talk about next month?
Oh, I mean, if we wanted to continue on mental health, I can talk about mental health. I mean, one of the things I really want to shed light on, Jessica, and, we can maybe, if there's somebody in the personal PR group who's, a therapist, where we can talk about suicide, because I think that is an area that a lot of people do not want to touch. But I can say this for me, and this may sound strange for some people, my suicidal thoughts haven't stopped. They have not stopped. right?
Oh my
But the
God.
thing for me, again, this goes back to self-awareness. My suicidal thoughts for me are more of a checks and balances. It is a reminder to me, just like my mental health journey, just like when I started to feel depressed, when I start to have those thoughts coming up, I'm like, okay, Portia, are we taking care of ourselves? Are we journaling like we need to? If we're not, we need to take some time. Are we getting enough sleep? Okay. Are we? So for me, it's kind of the red light, green light system. Okay.
Yeah.
And I think we need to really change the narrative around how we talk about, number one, suicidal ideation. Number two, how we address it. Number three, how can we spread more awareness where, again, it's kind of like when a kid falls, right? You know how a little kid, they're first learning how to walk. If you don't say, uh-oh, if you just tell them to get up, a lot of times they'll be okay. But then when we start over exaggerating, then that's when they get all distressed and start crying like, man, you know. But to me, it's the same thing with suicidal ideation and mental health. If we make it where it's not this, oh my God, we have to, if we just calm down and not be reactionary and say, hey, oh, okay, if you're feeling that way, let's talk about that. Because see, one of the things, and we can even talk about triggers, because one of the things I don't like is when people ask me, Portia, what's wrong? That is a trigger for me, that exact statement, Portia, what's wrong? Because immediately my brain is looking for something wrong, right? I'm looking for, is there an imperfection on my face? You know, do I have something in my teeth? So my brain instantly starts to seek what's wrong. So I like to tell people, my close circle, if you want to pick my brain, or like if I'm really struggling mentally, ask me, hey, Portia, what's on your mind? Right? It's all about reframing, or ask me, did I want to talk about it? Because that phrase of, Portia, what's wrong? No, it sends me down a whole spiral, and I know you get where I'm going. So I'd be open to just talking about that, triggers, or, you know, suicidal ideation, where we can really start to have this conversation and movement around these taboo topics. Because I think there's a lot of people that still wrestle with that, right? And I'm just very open to share it, because I've noticed it obviously a lot more post my mom's transition, obviously with my father's, but I'm able to recognize, oh, okay, here comes this thought. All right, Portia, are we taking care of ourselves? Are we drinking enough water? Are we getting enough sleep? Are we prioritizing our self-care? Are we eating the right stuff? Because again, one of my talking points is, what you digest is how you dress. There's a link between the food that you eat and your mental wellness.
Totally.
So we can touch on several different, you know, avenues, but I definitely want to talk about that, because I think the numbers keep going up, but our conversations do this. Let's switch it.
Yes, so it's confirmed, guys. Next month with Portia, we're going to talk about suicidal ideation, and we're going to bring in an expert as well. We have a month now, Portia, to look for an expert, right? For a therapist or somebody, you know, who's qualified to talk about this. Yeah, so thank you so much for the prompt, for the idea. Guys, you already know what the topic is going to be. So if you have any questions in advance, something that you would like to ask Portia or ask the therapist that we will have, please reach out to us. Absolutely. Because of course we want to create content that is relevant for you. And if there's anything, you know, personal that you would like to share as well, not to worry, it's going to be anonymous. I mean, we're going to see where the DM comes from, of course, but we won't share with anybody, right, Portia? Exactly. Like your privacy is certainly going to be respected. Portia, this is amazing. I feel that we are so lucky, because Mental Health Month is there's 1 month, right? A year, but we got 2 conversations about it, because we had one now in April, and then there's going to be one in May as well. So definitely this is something that we need to talk about. Thank you so much, Portia. This has been amazing. Thank you so much again for making the time, especially in this difficult week of your life. We love you.
I love you guys too.
We love you. We always look forward to the next episode with you. This has been our resident guest, Portia, the producer, guys. Portia, anything that you would like to say, to conclude our conversation today?
Of course, again, thank you, Jessica, extending my gratitude to you and, your community for having me. And, I'll just say for everybody who's out there, just remember that we can do hard things, even in moments of obviously grief, when we're losing somebody. That's where we truly find our greatest strength. I'm Portia the Producer, y'all. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Portia. We'll be in touch anyway, you and I. And guys, we'll see you next week for another episode of the Personal PR Show. In the meantime, have a lovely weekend. Ciao.